Welcome back to our channel where we share updates and untold stories about Catherine, Princess of Wales, and her royal family. Today we bring you some news. Prince Edward's shocking revelation over King Charles's last will turns Camilla in tears. A story says that Prince Edward has taken a big step to show King Charles's final will and testament amid the crisis of King Charles's health becoming worse, which shocks everyone of the royal family, especially Camilla. A royal revelation. The shocking truth about King Charles's last wishes. The publication of King Charles III's last will and testament has sent shockwaves through the royal family and beyond. It is a very important event in the history of the monarchy. What started as a private family meeting at Balmoral suddenly turned into a huge change in the way the royal family works, thanks to Prince Edward, the Duke of Edinburgh, who revealed information that shocked even the most experienced courtiers. The news was quite emotional, and family members were having a hard time accepting that things were changing. The king's choice to change his legacy, especially his surprising bias for Princess Catherine, has sparked conversations about the monarchy's future and the changing roles of its members. For a lot of people, the news came as a shock. Even while the family knew Charles's health was becoming worse, the details of his last desires came as a surprise and showed a side of the king that few people had expected. The monarch, who is renowned for being quiet and having a strong sense of responsibility, has decided to break with tradition in a manner that changes his legacy. His choice to give Catherine a large part of his own fortune and power shows that the monarchy is changing how it sees its consorts, raising her position beyond that of a typical royal spouse. This brave step, which is very personal, has bigger effects on the monarchy as a whole, since it goes against long-held beliefs and opens the door for a more contemporary, welcoming monarchy. The royal family has gone through a lot of emotional pain. People cried not just because they were worried about the king's health, but also because they knew that his last actions may change the entire basis of their dynasty. Prince Edward, who was regarded for being loyal and discreet, conveyed the news with a seriousness that made it clear how serious it was. Charles trusts his younger brother enough to send him a message, which is something that is frequently forgotten in the big picture of the monarchy. The royal family has a special connection to Balmoral, where the meeting took place. It was the scene for a moment that will be remembered for decades. As the family deals with this news, the effects of Charles's decisions keep coming to light, paving the way for a new chapter in royal history. A break from tradition. The will's emotional weight. The reading of King Charles's last will was not just a legal formality. It was a highly emotional occasion that affected the whole royal family. The news had an emotional weight that went beyond the inheritance, since it was delivered in the private setting of Balmoral, where the monarch spent many summers and formed many of his most treasured memories. For those there, the remarks were like a father's last wishes, showing that this guy, despite how he acted in public, had always prized strong family ties. It was especially surprising that the monarch decided to make Princess Catherine a daughter instead of a daughter-in-law. It was a gesture that spoke a lot about how his connections had changed over the years, especially after they had gone through hard times together, like their cancer journeys. Prince Edward, who was picked to give this news, is perhaps the best person to do it. Known for his prudence and unfailing allegiance, he has long been a stabilizing factor within the royal family, frequently functioning behind the scenes rather than in the public glare. His job at this point wasn't only to provide knowledge, it was also to make sure the family knew how Charles's actions affected them emotionally and symbolically. Edward has stayed out of the spotlight more than his older brothers, who have been in the news for a long time. This makes him the perfect person to send a message that was both very personal and important to politics. It was very important that he could read the emotions of the people in the room, as the royals were trying to figure out what a will that went against the norm in many ways meant. People in the room reacted with a combination of sadness, respect, and silent thought. Princess Anne, who was always a strong figure, was said to be clearly shaken, and her military precision gave way to a rare show of real emotion. People claimed that Prince William was very thoughtful and understood that his father's decisions were as much about legacy as they were about love. He had been trying to find a balance between duty and devotion to his family for a long time. People were both surprised and impressed by how Catherine was included in such an unusual way. This shows how close she has been to Charles over the years. The king seems to be quite impressed by her strength, especially when it comes to her own health problems. This makes him believe that she is more than simply a consort. She is a key element of the monarchy's future. The whole royal circle, not just the close family, needs to deal with the effects of this change. Giving Catherine a large part of the king's own money and power establishes a new standard for what future consorts should do. It shows that the monarchy is changing and moving away from the strict rules of the past when royal spouses were typically just there for ceremonial duties. People at Balmoral may recall this moment, which was spoken in hushed tones, as the moment that changed the royal family's views on legacy, love, and leadership. The imminent transition. William's journey to the crowned king. Charles's last will made one thing very clear. Prince William will not be a distant inevitability, but a reality very soon. The treaty clearly says that William will take the throne right away once Charles dies. This will make the transfer smooth and keep things stable during a period of national sorrow. This order follows the established line of succession, but it means more than just following the rules. It shows how much Charles trusts his oldest son to be a good leader and how much he wants to reduce any ambiguity that may threaten the monarchy's stability. The king has always been a realist, and he has known for a long time that the contemporary monarchy has to find a balance between tradition and flexibility. His choice to speed up William's road to kingship is proof of this. For William, this moment has been a long time coming. He has been getting ready for the job since he was a child, just as his father did. Queen Elizabeth II. Charles's grandmother made sure he was ready for the throne by having him serve the public for the rest of his life. This similar idea has defined William's upbringing. He has spent decades improving his diplomatic abilities, working on international issues, and supporting causes that are important to the British people as their needs change. His recent rise in public appearances, which have included everything from state visits to environmental projects, has further strengthened the idea that he is poised to take over for his father. But this change is very emotional, and it can't be overstated. Knowing that his father has made it clear that a quick coronation is a top priority makes the burden that lies ahead more bigger. Charles's health has been a big factor in how these plans have come together. People close to him say that he has been dealing with his disease with a mix of medical treatments and a strong desire to keep up with his public obligations. His recent public appearances have shown both indications of life and symptoms of stress, which has put the palace on high alert. The monarch's choice to make William the next king right away is partly because he knows how short time is. Charles is not just making sure that William becomes king right away, but he is also showing that he trusts his son's capacity to rule. There are deep emotional currents behind this choice. Charles, who has spent his whole life getting ready to be king, is now getting ready for the day when his son will take over. The political situation in the UK makes William's rise to power much more complicated in addition to the personal effects. The monarchy has always been a sign of stability, but at a time when public opinion and expectations are changing, William's position will be looked at more closely than ever. William will inherit both the accomplishments and failures of his father's attempts to reform the institution. The king's focus on a quick transition shows that he wants to keep the public's trust during a time of national sorrow, making sure that the monarchy remains a stabilizing factor in times of uncertainty. This puts a lot of pressure on William to find a way to respect his father's heritage while still making his own way. The palace is getting ready for what comes next, but the primary goal is still to make sure the transfer goes well. William has already taken on greater duties, stepping in during his father's treatment stages with a degree of grace that has astonished both courtiers and the public. These times, which were formerly thought to be only stand-ins, now seem to have been practice for becoming a king. The king's will, which stresses the importance of the moment, is a last order that will change not just William's destiny, but also the future of the monarchy itself. A new era for Princess Catherine, changing what it means to be a royal consort. It is a big break from royal precedent that Princess Catherine would get a big chunk of King Charles's own fortune and power. Catherine's inheritance is both large and significant, unlike that of past consorts, who usually only got little amounts of money and ceremonial duties. Reports say that she will get a lot of money from the Duchy of Lancaster, as well as ownership of certain assets and advising roles that go beyond what a traditional royal spouse does. This extraordinary step not only raises her stature in the monarchy, but it also shows that Charles sees her as a key player in the future of the institution. The fact that Catherine is in the king's last will shows how close they were as friends since they went through similar cancer journeys. Charles, who is getting treatment for an unknown kind of cancer, has publicly praised Catherine for how strong and resilient she has been while dealing with her own health problems. They have a special bond that goes beyond royal etiquette because of what they have been through together. People close to Charles say that he sees Catherine as more than simply his daughter-in-law. She is a real confidant who has been there for him emotionally when he needed it most. This is also what the king has said in private talks when he has said that he admires how she can be calm and graceful under pressure, even when things are tough for her personally. Catherine's inheritance has big effects on her finances. The current monarch will still be in charge of the crown estate, but his personal property, which is said to be worth hundreds of millions of dollars, will be given to his closest family members. Catherine's portion is thought to be one of the biggest, giving her not just financial freedom, but also a certain amount of power that might change how the monarchy works. She is likely to have access to private estates, including those at Highgrove and Windsor, which might be where she lives most of the time. She will also get some of the king's assets and personal art collection, which would help her financial situation even more. More importantly, she will be given advisory positions in important charity institutions, which will let her influence projects in areas like mental health, early childhood education, and environmental conservation, causes she has supported throughout her public life. This is almost never the case for a royal consort to have this much authority. In the past, royal wives mostly had to do ceremonial work and had little to no actual power over political or financial affairs. But Catherine's bequest is different from this pattern. It shows Charles's vision for a more contemporary monarchy that rewards merit, resilience, and being involved. He gave her such an important job in giving away his money to show that he thinks the monarchy has to change to be relevant in the 21st century. It also shows how much he trusts Catherine personally, as he has put her in a position of power that is almost as powerful as that of senior royals. We can't ignore how important this choice is emotionally. Charles, who is typically considered as a man of duty rather than emotion, has made it plain that his last desires are quite personal. Over the years, his relationship with Catherine has changed from a formal royal one to one of mutual respect and love. People who know the family say that the king has said he is sorry for the problems that have come up in the past, especially those that happened when William and Catherine were first married. Charles is not only making sure her future is safe by giving her money and power, but he is also sending a message about the sort of monarchy he wants to leave behind, one that values compassion, strength, and leadership that looks to the future. As the royal family deals with this news, it is becoming clearer what it means for Catherine's place in the monarchy. She is no longer only the calm princess and loyal wife. She is now a strong person in her own right. This change will definitely change what is expected of future consorts, and it might establish a standard that changes the role of royal spouses for decades to come. Behind the scenes. Edward and Anne's quiet work of love. The royal family is dealing with the emotional and political effects of King Charles's last will, and Prince Edward and Princess Anne have a serious but important job getting ready for the king's death. The fact that they are helping with these preparations, even if most people don't see it, shows how dedicated they are and how close they are to Charles. Edward and Anne have worked behind the scenes, making sure that every aspect of the king's last goodbye is handled with the decency and respect that his legacy deserves. This is different from the more famous members of the royal family. Their silent work shows how much they love their brother and how much they recognize that the monarchy has to keep going even when things change. Operation Many Bridge. The covert name for Charles's funeral arrangements has been in the works for years. However, recent events have made it even more important to finish the specifics. Edward, who is renowned for being organized and calm, is in charge of working out the details with palace authorities. He is using what he learned from past royal rituals to do this. His part in these preparations is like how he does his royal duties in general, practical, effective, and very personal. Anne, who is always quite disciplined, has concentrated on the familial parts of the event. She has made sure that the king's personal desires are respected, while also keeping the traditions that have been part of royal funerals for years. Edward's aptitude to handle complicated tasks and Anne's unwavering dedication to following the rules make them the perfect couple to take care of this sensitive job. You can see that these preparations are hard on the heart. Both brothers are renowned for being stoic in public, but those who know them well say that they have times of deep vulnerability as they deal with the reality of their brother's worsening health. When they spoke about the funeral plans, it made them think of their childhood together, when the four siblings, Charles, Anne, Andrew, and Edward, were always together. Knowing that they are getting ready to lose their oldest brother has made their meetings more intimate than normal, with tears and private chats, replacing the typical formality of royal engagements. This emotional undertone makes their work very personal and reminds them that even if they are public figures, they are first and foremost a family going through a painful but unavoidable change. Edward and Anne's preparations have had a big impact on the future of the monarchy, in addition to being hard on their emotions. By carefully planning every part of Charles's funeral, they are protecting against problems that may happen after he dies. They show that they know how to strike a balance between respecting the past and looking to the future by combining tradition with contemporary. For example, they included Charles's eco-friendly principles in the ceremony's design, while keeping the pomp that makes royal funerals so special. By doing this, they are not only protecting the monarchy's dignity, but they are also supporting the concept that the institution lasts because of the quiet, steady work of those who serve it behind the scenes. A legacy of fairness. The siblings' inheritance and royal unity. King Charles's last will and testament has changed not just the future of the monarchy, but also the financial and symbolic responsibilities of his siblings. This means that his legacy will go on beyond the immediate line of succession. Charles has chosen to share his own riches more evenly among his siblings, Princess Anne, Prince Edward, and Prince Andrew, rather of keeping it all for himself and his immediate descendants, which is how income has traditionally been shared among monarchs. Even if this choice was surprising, it shows that the king wants to honor the work of his brothers and bring the royal family together. Charles has made sure that they may be financially independent and continue to do their jobs in public life by giving each of them a large part of his private wealth. The way the money is divided up is not quite equal, but it is carefully planned to fit with each sibling's unique interests and charity work. Princess Anne, who is recognized for her unflinching devotion to public service, will get some of the king's wealth to help her current charity institutions, especially those that help young people and rural areas. Her part will likely go to groups like Save the Children and the Royal Agricultural Benevolent Institution, which shows how committed she has always been to helping others. Prince Edward, who is known for his love of the arts, would allegedly get money that will let him do more work in theater and preserving culture. His recent work to bring old theaters back to life and fund theater education programs shows that he will use his inheritance to support the arts, which has always been a passion of his. On the other hand, Prince Andrew's share is more complicated. Charles's choice to include the Duke of York in the bequest shows that he wants to keep the family together even though the Duke of York has been under a lot of scrutiny in recent years because of his legal and reputational problems. His share of the inheritance, which is said to be less than that of his brothers, is meant to provide him the money he needs to keep living the way he does without giving him any further benefits that may cause public outrage. This careful approach shows that Charles has a realistic understanding of family relations, recognizing previous problems, but putting stability and privacy first. This fair distribution has an emotional effect that goes beyond the financial one. Charles has strengthened the royal family's feeling of togetherness and respect for each other by making sure that each sibling gets a fair piece of his legacy. This choice, which is unparalleled in its scale, shows his vision for a monarchy that values not just duty, but also family ties, making sure that his siblings would always be a part of the institution's destiny. The unveiling of a king's passing, where old meets new. The time of King Charles III's death will be proclaimed with the same exactness that has been the norm for royal etiquette for hundreds of years. However, it will also show how fast news travels in today's hyper-connected world. The moniker Operation Many Bridge is a secret name for the king's burial and succession arrangements. It lays out a series of activities that will reconcile tradition with the needs of contemporary communication. The procedure starts as soon as the king's doctors certify his death. This sets off a chain of secret notifications to the royal family and the highest levels of government. The Prime Minister, prominent government officials, and the immediate royal family will all be told in a carefully planned order via safe private channels. This will make sure that the news is initially conveyed with the people who are most trusted before it becomes public. This first stage, which is often called the golden hour, is a very important time for the royal family to come together to deal with their sadness and be ready for the change that is about to happen. This time is quite private, unlike the big spectacle that comes after it. The family may be together in secret at Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, or Balmoral before the world sees them. During this period, the last details are worked out, and the king's corpse is set up for the traditional lying in state and funeral. The formal public announcement doesn't start until after this private time of grief. This gives the family a chance to rest before the rest of the world starts to grieve. The palace will make an official announcement of the king's death in a carefully written statement. This will be followed by a broadcast from the BBC, much as in the past when royal announcements were made. The palace has changed its approach to make sure that the news gets to people all around the world right away, at a time where social media and internet platforms are the main ways people talk about things. Official palace accounts on sites like X and Instagram will spread the word, making sure that billions of people get it at the same time. This method is different from the more controlled flow of information in the past, which shows how important it is to control the story at a time when false information may travel quickly. When a king or queen died, people would show their grief in public, such when bells rang at Westminster Abbey or black-edged signs were put up on palace gates. These customs will be followed for Charles's death, but they will also be changed to fit current tastes. The ringing of bells throughout the UK will still commemorate the time of his death, but digital memorials and virtual grieving spaces will also let people express their sadness. Operation Many Bridge. The name of the king's burial will be a state event rooted in centuries of history, but it will also include things that show his personal ideals and how the monarchy is changing. The announcement of Prince William's ascension will come quickly, with a ceremonial ceremony at St. James's Palace, making sure that the transfer of power is both fast and legally binding. The next monarch will make a public announcement at the same time as this important action to maintain political and economic stability. This will show that the institution will continue even when things change a lot. The news of Charles's death and William's coronation will be a carefully planned event that strikes a balance between the weight of history and the needs of the present. This will make sure that the monarchy stays a symbol of stability even in a world that is always changing. Queen Camilla's future, her legacy, her safety, and the road ahead. Queen Camilla is the only person whose destiny is still unclear after King Charles III's last will changes the monarchy. The king's children and siblings have definite plans for how their inheritances will be divided, but Camilla's position in the time after Charles seems to be one of quiet dignity rather than a lot of power. Prince Edward has said that the queen consort would be well taken care of, which will provide her a stable and secure existence, but she won't have the wide-ranging power or large amounts of money that a widow of a king or queen would usually have. This careful approach shows that Charles is realistic about Camilla's standing in the royal hierarchy. It recognizes her years of service while also emphasizing the monarchy's concentration on bloodline succession. People who know Camilla say that her inheritance is mostly symbolic. She should still be able to go to estates like Ray Mill, her beloved private home in Wiltshire that she bought before she married Charles. This estate, which is away from the public glare, will probably be her main residence, giving her a feeling of stability and a place to relax. But King William will get the bigger royal homes such Clarence House or Highgrove, which would strengthen his power and put all of the royal estates under his control. This setup makes sure that Camilla can live comfortably, but she doesn't have the same amount of institutional influence that a queen dowager could have had in the past. Camilla's future position in the monarchy is still up in the air, even if she is financially secure. She will be known as Queen Dowager since she is the widow of Charles III. This title is quite royal but doesn't give her much power. In the past, Queen Dowagers have always been a part of royal life, and the ruling king may choose whether or not they continued to do public obligations. For example, the Queen Mother was a well-known and adored figure even after King George VI died. Her presence gave people a sense of continuity and comfort. A lot of it hinges on William's plans for the monarchy and how well he gets along with his stepmother. The two have stayed on good terms, even if they aren't really close, but the next king will decide how much she can be involved in royal business. People also wonder about Camilla's connection with her two children, Tom and Laura Parker Bowles, from her former marriage. They have been part of royal circles for a long time, especially since Tom is close to Charles, but it is still unclear what their position will be after Charles. Some historians say that the monarch may have made little arrangements for them in his will, such giving them money or property from his own estate, but they will probably be maintained distinct from the main royal bequest, which would make sure that William had complete authority over the monarchy's most important assets. The Parker Bowles family will only be able to be involved in royal life if the future king is ready to keep up the connections that were built during Charles's reign. The most important thing for Camilla to think about right now is how hard it will be to live without Charles. For decades, she has remained at his side through public scrutiny, personal problems, and health issues they both had to deal with. Her identity is now forever tied to his. As she gets ready for a future without him, she is quite unsure of her role in the monarchy and in her own life. She will still be a revered person, but her job will probably change from being an active member of the royal family to being more of an advisor and symbol. But her legacy is safe. She has been the lady who stood with Charles through his worst years, molding his reign with quiet strength and constant support. William's leadership will help the monarchy go ahead, but Camilla's path may be quieter. Her impact will live on as a reminder of the royal family's complicated relationships of love, responsibility, and legacy. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts, and goodbye for now.